Hey everyone, welcome back. Today we're diving deep into the wisdom of Naval Ravikant.
All right.
We're cracking open the Almanack of Naval Ravikant, put together by Jorgenson. This book is like a guide to navigating life, wealth, happiness, you name it.
It really is.
It's packed with insights on building wealth, finding happiness, and those mental models, those frameworks for thinking that can really help you make smarter decisions. Have you ever felt like you're just spinning your wheels, working hard, but not really getting ahead?
Oh, yeah.
Well, today we're going to explore Naval's ideas on how to break free from that cycle, how to build wealth ethically, and how to find real, lasting happiness.
I think a lot of people are going to find this really relevant.
I think so too.
Huh.
So let's jump right in. One of the things that really struck me about Naval's philosophy is his definition of wealth. He doesn't just see it as money or possessions.
Right.
It's something much deeper than that.
Absolutely.
He actually defines wealth as assets that earn while you sleep.
It's a powerful way to think about it.
Yeah, it really is. So it's not just about having a pile of cash. It's about creating something that generates value, even when you're not actively working. But, this is important, he also emphasizes that this wealth creation should be ethical.
Yeah, and I think that's a crucial distinction.
Absolutely. What do you think he means by that when he talks about ethical wealth creation?
He's really pushing back against this idea that, despising wealth is somehow virtuous, or that becoming wealthy requires you to exploit others or do things that are morally questionable.
Right, it's not about taking advantage of people or cutting corners.
Exact.
It's about building something that benefits both yourself and the world around you.
Creating value, not just extracting it.
Okay, so let's say I'm on board with this idea of ethical wealth creation. Where do I even begin? I mean, the world feels so saturated with businesses and entrepreneurs.
Yeah, it can definitely feel overwhelming.
How do I find the right path?
Well, Naval is pretty clear on this. You need to own equity in a business.
So not just working for someone else, but actually owning a piece of something.
Right. It's not about trading your time for money. That's what he calls renting out your time.
Okay, I see the difference.
Instead, you need to own a piece of something that's growing and generating income, something that has the potential to scale beyond just your individual effort.
This makes a lot of sense, but how do I find the right business to be a part of? Feels like every industry is already so crowded.
It can feel that way, but that's where Naval's idea of specific knowledge comes in.
Specific knowledge.
Yeah, it's that unique combination of your skills, your passions, your experiences, the stuff you can't just learn from a textbook.
So not just general knowledge, but something that's specific to you.
Exactly. It's often rooted in things you were drawn to as a kid, maybe things you've always been naturally good at.
Okay, I'm starting to get it. So it's not just about what you know, it's about how your unique set of skills and experiences can be applied to create something valuable. This is fascinating. In the book, Naval mentions some pretty interesting examples of specific knowledge. Like, he talks about how a love for science fiction could actually be valuable in the business world.
Right.
I mean, I was a huge sci-fi nerd growing up, but I never thought of that as a marketable skill.
Well, think about what drew you to science fiction. Was it the intricate world building, the exploration of complex systems, the ability to imagine possibilities beyond the present?
Now that you mention it, yeah, those were the things that really captivated me. I loved how authors could create these entire universes with their own rules and possibilities.
And those are actually valuable skills in fields like technology, innovation, even marketing.
Really? I'm not seeing the connection.
Think about it. Understanding trends, anticipating future needs, crafting compelling narratives that capture people's imaginations, these are all skills that are rooted in that ability to think outside the box, to envision possibilities beyond the here and now.
Wow, I never thought of it that way.
It's almost like reframing those childhood passions as valuable assets.
Okay, that's a pretty mind-blowing concept. So let's say I can identify my specific knowledge, those things that make me unique and valuable. How do I actually use that to build a wealth-generating business?
Naval is a huge advocate for leverage.
Leverage.
Yeah, he talks about 3 types. Labor leverage, where you hire people to work for you. Capital leverage, where you use money to make more money. And then there's this really interesting concept of permissionless leverage.
Permissionless leverage.
Yeah.
Okay, now you've got me really intrigued.
It's this idea that in today's world, you can create things like code, content, media that work for you even when you're not actively working on them.
I see what you mean.
Think about a successful blog, a popular YouTube channel, an app that people use every day. These things can generate income while you sleep.
So you're leveraging technology and the power of the internet to create something that scales beyond your individual effort.
Exactly. And that's the beauty of permissionless leverage. You don't need anyone's permission to create and share your work with the world.
So if I'm hearing you right, to build wealth, we need to figure out our specific knowledge, then create something that has this permissionless leverage potential.
You're getting it.
But even then, it still feels like a long shot, right? I mean, there's so much competition out there.
Absolutely. And that's why Naval emphasizes the importance of long-term thinking. He talks about playing iterated games, meaning focusing on consistent effort and growth over time. It's not about chasing quick wins or getting caught up in fleeting trends.
So it's like planting a tree. You don't get instant shade or fruit, but with patience and care, it eventually flourishes.
Perfect analogy. And just like a healthy tree needs the right environment to thrive, building wealth often requires surrounding yourself with high-integrity people.
People you can trust, people who share your values.
Exactly. People who are committed to ethical practices, people who are in it for the long haul.
This makes me think about those competitive games people play in the business world. Trying to outdo each other, climbing the corporate ladder.
Oh, yeah, the status games.
Right. Does Naval address those at all?
He does. And he actually suggests that recognizing those games for what they are can help you avoid getting caught up in them.
So it's about being aware of those dynamics and
Yeah.
choosing to focus on something more substantial.
Exactly. It's about focusing on creating genuine value rather than chasing status or trying to impress others.
That's a refreshing perspective. It's easy to get sucked into those games without even realizing it.
Absolutely. It's all about being intentional with your energy and your focus.
Okay, so we've got this foundation of ethical wealth creation, leveraging our specific knowledge, thinking long-term, and surrounding ourselves with the right people. But there's another piece to the puzzle here, right? Something about building judgment.
That's right. Naval sees judgment as this ability to understand the long-term consequences of your actions.
So it's not just about making decisions, it's about making wise decisions.
Exactly. It's
Yeah.
about being able to see the bigger picture, to anticipate potential outcomes, to make choices that lead to the results you actually want, not just in your business, but in all areas of your life.
But isn't good judgment something you either have or you don't? Like some people just seem to have this natural ability to make good decisions while others struggle.
Well, Naval would argue that while some people might have a natural inclination towards good judgment, it's also a skill that can be developed.
Okay, so it's not just about innate talent.
Right. And one of the keys, he says, is prioritizing clear thinking over just memorizing complicated concepts.
So it's not about being the smartest person in the room?
Not necessarily. He believes that the smartest people can explain things simply, almost like you're talking to a child.
That makes sense.
But there's another layer to building good judgment, shedding those ego-driven desires and seeing reality for what it is.
Oh, that's a tough one.
It is. Our expectations, our hopes, our fears, they can all cloud our judgment and prevent us from making those clear-headed decisions.
Yeah, I think we've all experienced that at some point. Letting our emotions or wishful thinking get in the way of making the best choice. But how do we move past those ego-driven desires and actually make better decisions?
Naval suggests using mental models. These are frameworks or patterns of thinking that can help us analyze situations from different perspectives, anticipate potential outcomes, and make more informed choices.
Mental models.
Okay.
That sounds intriguing. What are some examples of those, and how can we actually use them in our daily lives?
There are several, but let's start with a really powerful one. Inversion.
Inversion.
Instead of asking, how do I succeed? Try asking, what would guarantee my failure? And then avoid those actions.
Okay, that's a really interesting way to approach things. It's like flipping the script and looking at the problem from the opposite direction.
Exactly. It forces you to think about the potential downsides and then strategize accordingly.
Can you give me a real-world example of how inversion might work?
Sure. Let's say you're launching a new product. Instead of focusing solely on what will make it successful, consider what could lead to its failure. Poor marketing, lack of market research, targeting the wrong audience.
I see.
By identifying those potential pitfalls, you can take steps to mitigate those risks.
That's incredibly practical. It's like a pre-mortem for your project. What are some other mental models that Naval recommends?
Another one is complexity theory.
Complexity theory.
It encourages us to accept that we can't know everything and we can't predict the future with certainty.
Yeah, that's a tough pill to swallow sometimes.
It is. The world is complex and things are always changing. Instead of trying to control everything, focus on being adaptable and resilient.
So it's more about navigating the complexity than trying to oversimplify it.
Exactly. It's like trying to navigate a winding road with a rigid map. You need to be able to adjust to the curves and the unexpected turns.
That's a great analogy. What else?
Another important one is the principal agent problem.
The principal agent problem. What's that?
It highlights the potential conflicts of interest that can arise when someone, the agent, is acting on behalf of another person, the principal.
Okay, I'm following.
So how does this principal agent problem play out in real life?
I'm not sure. Give me an example.
It's everywhere. Think about hiring a contractor. Are they truly prioritizing your best interests? Or are they cutting corners to maximize their own profit?
Right.
Or consider choosing a financial advisor. Are they recommending investments that benefit you, or are they steering you toward products that earn them higher commissions?
Ah, I see your point. Understanding this dynamic can help you avoid getting taken advantage of in all sorts of situations.
Precisely. It's like having an extra layer of awareness and protection.
Okay, I'm definitely going to keep that one in mind. Are there any other mental models that we should be aware of?
Well, of course, there's the classic mental model of compound interest.
Compound interest.
Yeah.
Isn't that just a financial concept?
We usually associate it with finance, but Naval points out that it applies to so many areas of life.
Really? Like what?
Small, consistent actions compounded over time can lead to significant results, whether it's building knowledge, developing skills, or even nurturing relationships.
So it's not just about those big dramatic gestures, but about consistently showing up and making those small incremental improvements over time.
You got it. And this actually brings us to a really fascinating aspect of Naval's philosophy, his journey toward understanding and cultivating happiness. It's a topic that so many people struggle with.
It's true. It seems like everyone's searching for happiness, but few seem to truly find it. What makes Naval's approach different?
Well, Naval's approach to happiness is rooted in the idea that it's not something you find, it's something you create.
Okay, I'm intrigued. So many people chase happiness through external things like money, possessions, status, but they never seem to find lasting contentment. How do we cultivate happiness from within?
One of the key principles Naval highlights is the importance of presence, being fully engaged in the present moment.
Presence. That's a word you hear a lot these days.
It is, and for good reason. Naval talks about the monkey mind that's constantly chattering, jumping from past regrets to future anxieties.
Oh, I know that monkey mind all too well. It's like a never-ending stream of thoughts that keeps me from fully experiencing the present moment.
Exactly.
But how do we quiet that mental chatter? It feels almost impossible sometimes.
Naval believes that a lot of this mental noise stems from desires and cravings, wanting things to be different from how they are. He sees those desires as forms of chosen unhappiness.
So it's almost like we're creating our own suffering by clinging to what we want instead of accepting what is.
You're getting it. He suggests that true peace comes from letting go of the idea of problems, not in a passive way, but in a way that allows you to see things clearly and act effectively without getting bogged down by emotional resistance.
This is making me think about the Buddhist concept of non-attachment. It's not about suppressing desires, but about recognizing their fleeting nature and not letting them control our happiness. But I imagine this is easier said than done, right?
Absolutely.
It's a practice, not a destination.
Exactly. But Naval offers some practical advice for cultivating happiness in our daily lives. One suggestion is to focus on building positive habits. For example, he talks about avoiding alcohol and excessive sugar.
Oh, I know those can definitely impact my mood and energy levels.
Right. They can negatively impact mood and energy levels for a lot of people. He also emphasizes the importance of surrounding yourself with positive people.
So the people we spend time with really do matter.
They really do. He even mentions the 5 chimps theory.
The 5 chimps theory.
Yeah, it suggests that you can predict a chimp's behavior by observing the 5 chimps it spends the most time with.
So the idea is that our social circles have a huge influence on our behavior and even our happiness levels.
Exactly. While we're not chimps, the principle applies. The company we keep shapes our thoughts, our beliefs, and ultimately our happiness. It's like that quote, "You are the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with." It's a reminder to choose our social circles wisely.
But even with those positive influences, it still feels like there's this internal struggle to find happiness.
I understand.
What can we do about that?
That's where Naval suggests shifting our focus from external sources of happiness to internal ones.
What do you mean?
Instead of seeking validation or possessions or achievements to make us happy, we need to cultivate inner peace, contentment, a sense of purpose that comes from within.
So it's not about what we have or what we accomplish, but about how we feel about ourselves and our place in the world.
Exactly. And this idea of self-reliance actually connects to another key aspect of Naval's philosophy, the concept of saving yourself.
Saving yourself.
He believes that ultimately we're each responsible for our own well-being.
That's a pretty bold statement.
It is.
Yeah.
He's saying that doctors, therapists, mentors, they can guide and support us, but they can't do the work for us.
I see what you mean. It seems like our culture often encourages us to look for external solutions to our problems. Quick fixes, magic pills, self-help gurus, promising instant transformation.
Right.
But you're saying that true change has to come from within.
That's Naval's core belief. He encourages us to embrace personal responsibility, not in a way that blames or shames, but in a way that empowers us to make choices that align with our values and aspirations.
Okay, so how do we actually save ourselves? What does that look like in practice?
It starts with being yourself, following your genuine curiosity and passion rather than trying to fit into someone else's mold.
I love that. It's about giving ourselves permission to be our authentic selves,
Yeah.
even if it goes against societal expectations.
It is. He believes that each of us has unique talents and gifts to offer the world, and suppressing those only leads to unhappiness and unfulfillment.
But beyond self-acceptance, what are some specific actions that Naval recommends for this saving yourself process?
He emphasizes the importance of taking care of ourselves physically, mentally, and emotionally. He's a proponent of a simple, natural diet.
You mean like eating whole, unprocessed foods?
Exactly. Eating whole, unprocessed foods and avoiding excessive sugar or processed ingredients. He believes in the power of regular physical activity.
Even something as simple as a daily walk can make a difference.
Exactly. It's about those foundational habits, nourishing our bodies with good food, moving our bodies regularly. Those are pretty accessible starting points for most people.
They are.
And then for the mental and emotional aspects of self-care, Naval is a big advocate for meditation.
Meditation. I've tried that before, but I struggle to quiet my mind.
It's a practice. He describes it as intermittent fasting for the mind. It's a way to quiet the mental chatter, reduce stress, become more aware of our thoughts and emotions.
I can see the appeal, but sitting still and silencing that constant stream of thoughts feels almost impossible.
He emphasizes that it's a practice that requires patience and consistency. Just like you wouldn't expect to run a marathon after one day of training, you can't expect to achieve a state of blissful emptiness after one meditation session.
Right, it's about showing up consistently and gradually building that mental muscle.
Exactly. We often expect instant results, but cultivating inner peace is a journey, not a quick fix.
Speaking of challenging practices, I know Naval is known for his advocacy of cold showers.
Yes.
And the Wim Hof breathing method. Those seem a bit extreme. What's his rationale behind those?
He sees them as ways to build mental strength and resilience. Cold showers, in particular, can help us overcome discomfort and train our minds to stay calm under pressure.
I'll admit, the thought of a cold shower first thing in the morning doesn't sound that appealing.
It's definitely not for everyone.
But I can see how pushing through that initial discomfort could build mental toughness. What about the Wim Hof method? What's that all about?
It combines specific breathing techniques with cold exposure. It's said to have a number of health benefits, like boosting the immune system and reducing inflammation.
Okay, maybe I'll have to look into that a bit more. But for now, let's shift gears back to this idea of saving ourselves.
Okay.
We've talked about self-acceptance, healthy habits, even those challenging practices like cold showers. What else does this saving yourself process entail?
Naval emphasizes the importance of building good habits and discarding bad ones. That makes sense.
And he stresses that this is a process that requires patience and consistency. Real change takes time and effort.
It's like those New Year's resolutions that people make with great enthusiasm, but then abandon a few weeks later.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's easy to get discouraged when we don't see immediate results. And that's where Naval's emphasis on long-term thinking comes in again.
Right.
Just as compound interest works its magic over time, consistent effort in building good habits will eventually yield significant results. It's about trusting the process and focusing on those small, incremental improvements day after day.
So it's not about striving for perfection, but about consistently showing up and making those small positive choices.
That's it.
I like that. It feels much more manageable than trying to overhaul your entire life overnight. So we've talked about building wealth, cultivating happiness, and taking responsibility for our own well-being. But there's one more key element to Naval's philosophy that I want to touch on before we wrap up. Reading. I know he's a voracious reader and believes that knowledge compounds just like interest. Oh, absolutely. He sees reading as a powerful tool for personal growth and intellectual development.
It's true. I'm a big reader myself. But with so many books and articles out there, it can be overwhelming to know where to start. Does Naval offer any guidance on what to read or how to approach reading effectively?
He does. He suggests diving deep into subjects like science, math, and philosophy.
Really?
Yeah.
That's not the usual advice you hear about reading for self-improvement. Most people are told to read business books or self-help bestsellers.
Right, but Naval argues that those subjects provide a solid foundation for understanding how the world works,
I see.
and that can help you make better decisions.
So it's not just about learning specific skills, it's about developing those mental models we were talking about earlier.
Exactly. For example, understanding basic physics can give you a framework for thinking about cause and effect.
That's a good point.
Or studying history can help you recognize patterns and cycles that repeat themselves over time.
I'm starting to see how those subjects can be relevant to everyday life, even if they don't seem directly applicable at first glance.
They really can. It's about building those fundamental frameworks for understanding the world.
Instead of just acquiring surface-level knowledge.
Exactly.
I like that. It's about going deeper, getting to the root of things.
Right.
But I have to admit, finding the time to read those kinds of books can be tough. Most of us are juggling busy lives and competing demands for our attention.
I hear you. Naval acknowledges that. He's not suggesting we all become scholars or spend hours each day poring over textbooks.
Okay, that's a relief.
Even dedicating just a little bit of time each day to reading in these areas can make a significant difference over time.
So it's about consistency and quality over quantity.
You got it. He believes that spending even an hour a day on these foundational subjects can put you on a path to extraordinary success within a few years.
An hour a day. That feels a lot more doable than trying to read a whole book every week. But even with that commitment, it still feels like there's so much to read. I mean, how do we choose what to focus on?
Naval encourages us to be discerning readers.
What does that mean?
Instead of trying to read everything, focus on those great books.
The classics.
Yeah, the ones that have stood the test of time, the ones that offer timeless wisdom. He even suggests rereading those books multiple times to fully absorb their concepts and see how they connect to other ideas.
I've never been much of a rereader, but I can see how that could be beneficial.
It can. It's about slowing down, engaging deeply with those books that offer real depth and insight.
Instead of just speed reading or skimming for the main points.
Exactly. It's about extracting the real value from the material, not just trying to check another book off your reading list.
Okay, that makes sense. What about note-taking? Some people swear by highlighting and summarizing, while others just immerse themselves in the text. What's Naval's take on that?
He actually has a unique approach to note-taking. He uses Twitter.
Twitter? Really?
Whenever he comes across a thought-provoking idea, he distills it into a concise tweet.
So he's using social media as a tool for learning and reflection.
It forces him to clarify his thinking and express the essence of the idea in a limited number of characters.
That's pretty clever. It's like turning those insights into shareable nuggets of wisdom.
Right. And by sharing those insights publicly, he often gets feedback and challenges that further refine his understanding.
So it's not just about broadcasting his ideas, it's about engaging in a dialogue and learning from others.
Exactly. It's a continuous loop of learning and refinement.
I see what you mean. It's not just about passively consuming information, but about actively engaging with it, testing it out, and seeing how it connects to other ideas. But beyond those specific recommendations for reading, does Naval offer any broader guidance on how to approach learning and knowledge in general?
He emphasizes the importance of being a lifelong learner.
That's something we hear a lot these days.
It is, but it's more than just a buzzword. It's about cultivating a mindset of curiosity, a willingness to constantly expand your knowledge and understanding.
So it's not just about getting a degree or completing a course. It's about a deeper commitment to ongoing learning.
Exactly. He believes that the world is constantly changing, and we need to adapt and evolve to thrive in this ever-shifting landscape.
I agree. In today's world, it's not enough to just learn a skill or a profession and then coast on that knowledge for your entire career.
You need to constantly be learning and adapting.
Right, to stay relevant and engaged.
Absolutely. And Naval encourages us to apply what we learn.
So it's not just about accumulating knowledge in our heads, but about actually using it.
Exactly. He believes that knowledge is most valuable when it's put into action. It's through action that we truly transform knowledge into something tangible and impactful.
This brings us to another important aspect of Naval's philosophy, his perspective on success. It's a topic that everyone seems to be chasing.
I think we all want to feel successful in some way.
I have a feeling his definition of success is a bit different from the typical money, fame, and power version that we so often see glorified.
You're right. Naval's view of success is much more nuanced.
How so?
He emphasizes internal fulfillment, finding meaning and purpose in our endeavors, and living a life that aligns with our values.
So it's not just about achieving external markers of success, but about cultivating a sense of inner peace and contentment.
Exactly. He believes that true success is not a destination, but a journey of continuous growth, self-discovery, and making a positive impact on the world around us.
I like that. It takes the pressure off of achieving some arbitrary definition of success and allows us to define what success means for us individually.
Right. It's about defining success on your own terms.
But I'm curious, how does Naval view those more traditional markers of success, wealth, recognition, achievements? Does he see those as inherently negative?
He doesn't dismiss them outright. He recognizes that those things can be valuable, but he emphasizes that they shouldn't be the primary focus.
So it's not about completely rejecting those things, but about putting them in perspective.
Right. He believes that if we focus on living a life of purpose and meaning, those external markers of success will often follow naturally.
So it's about shifting our priorities, not making those external markers the goal, but focusing on building a life that feels authentic and fulfilling.
You got it. And this leads us to a really powerful question that Naval poses. If you could redesign your life from scratch, knowing what you now know about wealth and happiness, what would you change?
Wow, that is a thought-provoking question. It forces you to really examine your life and ask yourself if you're living in alignment with your values and aspirations.
It really does. It's an invitation to let go of those limiting beliefs and those choices that no longer serve us. It's a powerful tool for self-reflection and for making those course corrections that can lead to a more fulfilling and meaningful life.
Well, I think we've covered a lot of ground in this deep dive into the mind of Naval Ravikant. We've explored his ideas on wealth, happiness, judgment, reading, success, and so much more.
It's been a fascinating exploration.
It really has. His perspective is both inspiring and challenging. It's not about quick fixes or easy answers, but about a deep understanding of ourselves and the world around us.
I agree. His insights offer a unique blend of practicality, philosophy, and personal experience.
And it's a reminder that we have the power to shape our own destinies, to cultivate happiness from within, and to live lives that are both fulfilling and impactful.
Absolutely. It's all about taking ownership of our lives and creating the future we want.
Thank you for joining us on this journey into the world of Naval Ravikant. We encourage you to explore his work further and see how his wisdom can help you create a life of purpose, meaning, and true happiness. Until next time, keep seeking, keep learning, and keep diving deep.
It is a lot to take in.
Yeah. So before we wrap up, I want to circle back to something you mentioned earlier, this idea of saving yourself.
Oh, yeah, that's a big one.
It really struck a chord with me. I think a lot of us are looking for someone or something to save us. You know, whether it's a doctor, a therapist, a guru, a new self-help book, we're searching for that magic solution.
Right. We want that quick fix, that easy answer.
But what Naval's saying is that ultimately we have to save ourselves.
He is. It's about taking responsibility for our own well-being, making those choices that align with our values and aspirations.
No, it's not about blame or shame. It's about empowerment.
Exactly. It's about recognizing that we have the power to change our lives. We don't have to wait for someone else to do it for us.
I like that. It's a very empowering message. And it reminds me of something else Naval talks about, the importance of being yourself.
Oh, absolutely. That's fundamental to his whole philosophy.
He encourages us to follow our genuine curiosity and passion, not to try to fit into someone else's mold.
Because when we try to be someone we're not, when we suppress our true selves, that's when we start to feel lost and unfulfilled.
Yeah, and that's when we start looking for external validation and quick fixes instead of doing the inner work.
Exactly. It's about embracing our authenticity, our unique talents and gifts.
So how do we do that?
Yeah.
How do we actually start being ourselves?
It's a journey, but I think it starts with awareness. Paying attention to those moments when we're not being true to ourselves, when we're saying yes, when we really want to say no, when we're chasing someone else's definition of success.
It's about being honest with ourselves,
Yes, and then having the courage to make changes,
to step outside of our comfort zones, to pursue those things that light us up.
even if they're unconventional, even if they don't fit the mold.
It's about creating a life that feels aligned with who we truly are.
Exactly. A life that feels authentic and meaningful.
Well, I think that's a beautiful note to end on. This idea of creating a life that feels authentic and meaningful.
I think so too. It's a powerful reminder that we have the power to shape our own destinies.